Hello, good evening and welcome to the Hot Seat. This evening we have a veteran politician, a vociferous leftist member of parliament, and we're delighted to have with us Mr. Vasudeva Nanayakkara. Good evening, Mr. Vasudeva, and very warm welcome to the Hot Seat. Thank you for being with us. A Kala Kanni government. What on earth do you mean?
A government literally that is wasting its time and heaping burdens on the people and misery for the country. That's the description you could give about the term Kala Kanni.
Do you mean that, or is that mere politicians' flourish?
No, not mere abuse or rhetorical flourish, but it is truly the case with the government. It is wasting its time and doing nothing. On the other hand, it is heaping burdens on the people, and it is misery for the country, with the ultimate achievement of theirs, which is blackouts.
As in the power blackouts?
Yes.
Do you think there's an element of sabotage there? Or willful...
I don't know. I wouldn't want to guess, but I truly understand that the government has lost the grip on the administration. Otherwise, it could not have been possible that even accidents could occur and recur the way it has done.
So, in that, within this ambience, how legitimate would you say this government is?
Government has fast lost its legitimacy, and this is firstly because they have gone back on their promises to the people about the guaranteed prices of paddy, tea and rubber, and thus brought misery on the people, and this has created conditions of poverty amongst about 30% of the population in this country, who live by paddy, tea and rubber, or a little more than that when you include the workers as well. Even the companies are unable to manage at the present price levels. So it is the time when the government has to intervene and ensure that there is the minimum levels of prices ensured for the people who are engaged in these agricultural practices.
Have you been watching the Gum Madda program?
Yes, I have watched 2 or 3 of them.
Different episodes. We've uncovered a wholesale lack or a wholesale hopelessness, helplessness, homelessness within an all-encompassing poverty, which essentially means, Mr. Vasu, that the people of rural Sri Lanka are lacking an opportunity to live this life properly and with some dignity. They are the forgotten people of Sri Lanka. Do you agree? Are they the forgotten people?
Yes, there is a sizable section of our population living in the furthest rural regions, going through all the deprivations, including the right to life itself.
And why do you think it is that successive governments since independence have done absolutely very, very little to alleviate the conditions of rural Sri Lanka?
The semi-urbanization of Sri Lanka has made it possible for the layers of the society who are lower middle class in classification to be able to influence the elections and the minds of the people during elections, which includes even the most impoverished sections in the furthest rural areas, or they do not matter when it comes to the election. Their votes will not make any difference to the numbers that ultimately prevail in an election result.
If they amount to 1 million people, and the total votes cast is about 12 million or 14 million, that's a sizable percentage.
They won't be 1 million. It will be less than 1 million in my estimate. However, they are absorbed in the larger mass flow of the election moods. They get encompassed within the larger mass election moods.
Now, what is more important? Is it more important to have constitutional reform, party, constitutional amendments, a megapolis? What is more important? Is it more important in resolving the real issues of of rural Sri Lanka?
Quite independent of what they matter to voting, it is the incumbent duty of any administrator worthy its name to address the grievances and the misery of these people, however small they are, as a component of the total vote base. And if they had not done so up to now, well, we are all guilty. And I believe if there had been any alleviation of the conditions of poverty in the rural sector, it has been during the government of Mahinda Rajapaksa or Sirima Bandaranayaka, or in the previous regime of Bandaranayaka, which began in 1956, with education as the means of social upliftment or social climbing.
A bit more about what afflicts Sri Lanka. We'll be back after this short break. Welcome back to the hot seat, where we're joined by MP Vasudeva Nanayakkara. Mr. Vasudeva, it is equally important to address the real issues of the people of rural Sri Lanka as it is to tinker with the constitution or whatever else that the government is busy doing. But the people, the suffering of the people in these rural areas is not some figment of anyone's imagination. These are real images, and they are real people that Newsfirst went to see. Well, what do you say? Is there a commitment? Do you see a commitment amongst existing legislators in Parliament to actually address these issues?
No, there is no commitment in particular and in relation to these sections of people. It is in general that the concerns of the parliamentarians are directed, or in larger segments of the people are the concerns of the parliamentarians related. The particular segments who are the most neglected, most depressed, and who are the voiceless, as you say, they don't seem to get a particular attention of the parliamentarians.
What do you have to say about the rising cost of living? I mean, for example, salt is 40 rupees and
rising to 80 rupees.
Rising to 80 rupees. Is that a good indication?
That's a very good indicator about the food prices or the prices of essential commodities. Salt is undoubtedly the most essential. And if that is rising from 40 to 80 rupees, and which was only about 15-20 rupees about 10 years ago, is an indicator that we are in for very bad times. And already the chickpeas, the green peas, sugar, all these are on the rise, according to the traders. And strangely, the paddy prices are very low. Paddy prices are very low because the people can't sell their paddy. There is no marketing by the paddy marketing board, and therefore they go to the
private trade
sharks,
yeah,
the private traders sharks, and they sell at 18 rupees, 20 rupees, or even less. But the prices of rice in the market is high. This shows the gap between the producer and ultimately the consumer. And who lies in between except the big millers, who are a very close circuit of a mafia.
Can I ask you, Mr. Vasu, what sort of a chap is our dear Prime Minister? I mean, he called you a dried pumpkin. What possessed him to do that? What did he mean?
I don't understand the phrase up to now. I believe he had drawn it from some ancient book that he had read about people who need to be abused.
I see.
He appears to have become so self-conceited, and he thinks that he is the center of the earth, and he has drawn towards himself the prerogative of answering for every minister, and to impose on the parliament, on the house, even rules about the speaker, and he would intervene in the most unethical manner and in the undemocratic manner in order to shout people down and in order to be abusive. He has lost all controls and all discipline in him as a parliamentarian. He has begun to behave as if he owns the parliament, that everybody has to listen to him. Well, he cannot bear to face a criticism. He cannot take a critical comment that is made about him or his government. He jumps like a jack in the box and all the time intervene, interrupt and interfere with any speaker who rises up legitimately.
Are you familiar, Mr. Vasudeva, with the term, a medical condition known as Asperger's syndrome?
No, I am not familiar with that term,
No.
Asperger's.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Asperger's syndrome is consistent with somebody amongst a long list of characteristics, but it is someone who has no sympathy or empathy for the next man and that man's problems. Somebody who is consistently and persistently absorbed in the detail. For example, he may pay overt and full attention to the shape of this curve here, and to the exclusion of all other things. He's in his own world. Do you think the Prime Minister's...
What you say sounds more related to a drug addict, as I have heard a person who becomes too concerned about the specific details of a matter, notwithstanding the importance of the surrounding circumstances.
To find out a bit more about Asperger's syndrome and everything else, join us after this short break. Welcome back to the hot seat, where we're joined by MP Vasudeva Nanayakkara. Mr. Vasudeva, what do you make out? The Prime Minister at a recent meeting dealing with economic affairs and in connection with a land transaction in Vauxhall Street is supposed to have said that he will deal with the Minister of Public Enterprise when that minister returns to the country. Because in the context that the Prime Minister was unhappy with the way some officials from the Ministry of Public Enterprise had written to his ministry, berreting them and saying that they cannot accept this ridiculously low price when the price was at least double. So the Prime Minister appears to be controlling many ministries. Is that a characteristic that you have experienced?
Yes, he appears to control almost the entire cabinet as the Prime Minister, not giving leadership, but bringing everybody under his controls in order to decide on every important issue of every ministry. That's what I have observed about many ministries which had problems, whether it's the Ministry of Power or whether it is the Ministry of Labour. He intervenes in order to give the ultimate solution, or he appears to intervene. He happens to be the ultimate arbiter of all things in every ministry, from all what appears to be. And I cannot imagine, Kabir Hashim is a very, very honest gentleman, and I know him for a long time, and he would not barter his reputation as an honest man to anything like a status of a minister. If he says that the value of a patch of land in Vauxhall Street, which comes within his ministry, the JEDB, and if he thinks that the best for the JEDB would be to sell it at that price, and if the Prime Minister wants to give it to a person at half that price, I am sure Kabir Hashim will stand his ground. And at the same time, the Prime Minister is up to no good, this Mr. Clean, if he is wanting an unsolicited offer to be accepted for a price half that of the actual, which then raises a very important question about what the Prime Minister is up to.
Indeed. I hope that he may have to deal with you and me too then.
Yes, I'm waiting for that day.
Right. We need to ask you, you are part of this joint opposition.
Yes.
What good is the joint opposition when you have no real recognition from this parliament? Why is that?
Recognition of parliament is a result of the ground situation in respect of the mass movement. The parliament cannot ignore the ground situation of the mass movement, and the representatives in the parliament who are the voice of this mass movement. Parliament can only play this game for a very short time, ignoring the actual representatives of the opposition, ignoring the numbers amounting to 52 who represent this large mass of people who oppose this government. And then the speaker is embarrassed himself, but the speaker is under pressure in order to keep these 52 members of parliament with the minimum opportunities within the parliament to be able to express themselves in respect of time, in respect of privileges, priorities, etc. However, now, under pressure, we have got some accommodation, but not perfect recognition as a group. But it is only a matter of time before we will become recognized. Otherwise, the parliament will be surpassed by the actually existing mass opposition in the country. What good is parliament if it does not ultimately reflect what's going on in the country.
And how long more would you give this government?
1 more year, the maximum, from now on, to sort out the contradictions that will definitely arise within the government. In the meantime, the Prime Minister wants to create conditions of total market economy where everything will become determined in the market, and therefore the large sections of the people who are unable to be the strong purchasers in the market to become marginalized and thus be driven to insurgence. He is creating conditions of insurgence in order that he will begin his battle under operational strategy in repressing the larger opposition, selectively picking out fellows in order to be brought for interrogation, torture, and ultimately elimination. But he will need conditions to be right for it, which he will want to happen, which hopes that insurgency will be the result of the conditions that are presently being cultivated by him through the economic policies, where the prices of rubber are nil, prices of tea have dropped, and prices of paddy is unendurable. And all these conditions will drive people into desperate moods, and it will result in insurgent groups emerging here and there in desperation, and which will give him the right opportunity that he's been waiting for in order to deal with the joint opposition selectively through his battle and the operational strategy.
On that very serious note and warning from MP Vasudeva Nanayakkara, it's time to say thank you for watching Hot Seat, and thank you, Mr. Vasudeva Nanayakkara, for your presence here with us. Thank you.
Thank you.